Obviously, having the background that you had, being in the military, going to the Air Force Academy, being an athlete, all of those things are amazing skills. I would like to have seen just a little bit more focus on really the heart of this question that a lot of students miss, which you didn't miss, you just didn't focus, I think, enough on it. The heart of this question is, welcome to Application Renovation, Season 2, Episode 2. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So before we jump into looking at application, which I have here, I want to hear from you, kind of your feedback, your thoughts on the application, where you think you struggled, maybe some red flags in your application, any feedback that maybe you have gotten, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I think probably my first big mistake is that I applied really late in the cycle. I didn't really understand what rolling applications were, and I think I ended up, I applied to two different ways. I applied through TMDSAS because I'm a Texas resident, and I did AMCAS, and I was really late for both of them. I think I probably submitted in October, so it was really late. I also think my GPA is a big factor, and my MCAT score. I think those are like the three flashing red lights in my mind.
Okay. Awesome. I agree with the part of the application timeline. So on your AMCAS application, you submitted in October. So students can see here, you submitted October 4th, and it was actually processed pretty quickly, right? Later on in the cycle, there's less and less applications, so it got processed pretty quickly. I'm going to open up your TMDSAS application and really walk through that because I think it's a good view on that application cycle. So something that kind of stood out to me right away, just how TMDSAS is laid out, is kind of reverse of AMCAS, just how the PDF looks. All of the schools that you apply to are at the end of AMCAS. On TMDSAS, they're at the beginning here. And so some things that stand out right away are all of the public out-of-state schools that you applied to. And so that's just kind of like, were you really competitive at those schools? Did you have specific ties to those schools, etc.? So that's the kind of the first question that I would have looking at this is why did you apply to so many public out-of-state schools? And well, I'll give you time at the end. We can talk through things. It's really more just a higher level discussion that for students really to understand, right? Really make sure that you're applying to the best schools for you based on your situation. Just for students to see, TMDSAS does ask for high school information, SAT, ACT, which is always fun.
Yeah, that was hard to remember my scores.
So you have all of your schools that you've attended, everywhere you've gone. So looking through the application, we'll scroll through. The first thing that pops up to me that I just wanted to comment on, and actually you can let me know. So you're active duty military now, having gone through the Air Force Academy and are now an officer. Do you have permission from your, just because I'm former military, I understand this process. Like, do you have permission to apply to medical school? That's the first question that I would have.
So that was really hard. But I thought that was going to be the hardest part of the whole process.
Yeah.
And I did get permission to get released from my career field to go to medical school. So I was like, I just got to get into school.
now you just got to get in. Yeah, and it's I think good feedback for students who are in the military thinking about going to medical school is you definitely have to talk to your career field manager. And unfortunately,
I would just say be upfront with your office and talk to your career field manager. And if they say no, just keep asking. Someone knows someone.
Exactly. All right. And then again, TMDSAS application lays out personal statement first. So let's go ahead and talk about personal statement. The first part of your personal statement is all Air Force qualities, right? Your goal with the personal statement, remember, is why medicine. And so your first paragraph, in my mind, is just wasted space, right? You're an Air Force officer. I think most people understand that people in the military hopefully have integrity, hopefully are service before self, right? That's just mostly a given. And so when you focus on that aspect of your military service, in my mind, it's just a waste of space for your personal statement. And
Okay.
I think you're trying to spin it a little bit here. I have marked that you want to give your future patients my absolute best effort and then more. Well, I would hope so. And again, outlining that in your personal statement doesn't really tell me anything. It just says, hey, I'm here to try my hardest, right? So
Mhm.
be careful with just generic statements like that.
Okay.
And again, the core values of the military, of the Air Force, and bringing those to your day-to-day life. Again, I would hope so, right? That's just the goal of being a military officer. The next paragraph, you dive into being a pre-med student and going to a club meeting. And remember, the goal of the personal statement is why medicine. And so when you start off by saying, hey, I was at my first pre-med club meeting, my first question is, well, why were you there? Why were you interested in being pre-med to begin with? Right? Maybe you dive into that later in the personal statement. I have some other stuff marked here, but that's just the first question that pops to mind. The statement that you make about the first meaningful experience that solidified your desire to become a physician was a meeting is kind of a head scratcher to me, right? Are you really sure what you're getting yourself into? If you're saying, hey, my most meaningful, one of my first meaningful experiences is going to a meeting. I'm like, I hope you have better experiences than that to lean on to show why you want to be a physician. So maybe just a judgment issue in my mind of why are you focusing on a meeting and not focusing on some healthcare experiences to really show that you want to be a physician? So just a question that comes. And then the rest of that paragraph and the next paragraph, you talk about this physician that came in, this ENT physician, talking about the war stories and the actions clearly displayed the doctor's duties to save lives, spectacular stories. And then going into the next paragraph, the fast-paced tempo excited me. I could feel the adrenaline pumping. That is, again, very concerning when I read that to go, okay, you're addicted to this rush that you think being a physician is like. And I understand reading this essay, being a physician is nothing like that. Right? Maybe 5% of the time, right? In my Specialty Stories podcast, I interview emergency medicine physicians, and we talk about, right, the gunshot wounds and the stab victims and those, like, what TV and movies really paint the picture of. This is what an emergency medicine physician's job is. And they're like, yeah, that's maybe 5% of the cases. The rest are normal, like sniffles and overdoses and alcoholics and other more mundane, less quote unquote exciting things. And so when all you're doing is focusing on the rush and the adrenaline, and this is going to be amazing, I just step back and go, you likely probably haven't had enough experience around physicians to really understand what it is. And if I let you into medical school, you're not going to be very excited because it's very boring a lot of the time. And if you're seeking the adrenaline rush, you're going to be very sad. Okay? So again, just that judgment issue of what you're focusing on is the wrong thing to focus on, in my mind.
Okay.
And then the next thing, the patient's expressions of gratitude towards the physicians. I have students stay away from, oh my God, the patients thanked me. They had all this gratitude, right? If you're in this, again, seeking the adrenaline rush, seeking the gratitude and the thanks from patients, again, you're going to be sorely sad when the majority of your patients probably are yelling at you, are unhappy with you, are saying, where's my prescription? Where are my records? Where's the doctor's note that I need? Right? And they're not thankful. And again, it gets very sad. And I think that's what leads to a lot of physician burnout is they're in this for that adrenaline rush. They're in this for that gratitude. And when they get out into the quote unquote real world and they see that that's not what it's like, then they're like, well, why did I do this? Right? This isn't what I wanted. So those are just things reading the personal statement. Another thing that I pointed out here real quick is the practitioner's language that you used. So a lot of students will use the term practitioners. They'll use the term providers. In your application, use the word physicians. right? It's just
Okay.
physicians, there's this huge kind of pushback and a lot of upset in the physician world about the language of practitioners and providers, with physicians thinking that administration is attacking them, saying, oh, you're trying to put us on a level playing field with PAs and NPs, right? So just use the word physicians where appropriate.
Okay.
And then the last sentence in this paragraph, you have here, building critical relationships with patients is arguably just as essential as treatment itself. Again, maybe, sure, generic statement, probably true, doesn't really tell me anything about you. Okay, and remember, the goal of this is, why do you want to be a physician? Not, hey, I understand that building relationships is important. Okay?
Got it.
Your next paragraph here, you get into volunteering, exposing you to a patient's experience. Great. That excites me that you are getting that experience. And very similar to episode 1 of Application Renovation of season 2 here, is this focus on death, right? So this patient passed away. And again, I don't know, there's this fatuation with students really saying, hey, I understand that we're not going to win every time. And I don't know why that's there, but students like doing it. And so I wanted to point that out again here for other students. When I finished reading the essay, my question, or this specific paragraph, is how does this impact you and your desire to become a physician? Right? How did it water the seed? In my personal statement book, it's what planted the seed. So again, going back to that second paragraph of I went to a pre-med club meeting. Well, what was the seed that got you there to begin with? And then you have this volunteer experience. How did that impact your decision to become a physician? That reflection is really the important part of this essay, to say, hey, like, I did this, great, and here's why it's important to me. Okay?
Okay.
And then the last paragraph here, you say, my collective experiences have helped me understand a portion of the facets that make up the medical world. And again, a lot of students take this angle with their essays, with their application, to say, I know what it's like to be a physician. I understand what I'm getting myself into, right? That's typically the angle that students are aiming for, to say, hey, you should accept me because I understand what I'm getting myself into. And it's just, again, the wrong message, the wrong story that you're trying to tell here. I need to know why you want to do this. Why do you want to be a physician? And after reading your essay, I'm still asking, why do you want to be a physician? I don't know. Okay?
Okay.
And so TMDSAS, they have their personal characteristics essay. They also have the optional essay. You wrote both of those, which is great. I liked your personal characteristics essay. It's a little bit on the salesy side of things, and students can pause the video and kind of read your essay here. Obviously, having the background that you had, being in the military, going to the Air Force Academy, being an athlete, all of those things are amazing skills. I would like to have seen just a little bit more focus on really the heart of this question that a lot of students miss, which you didn't miss. You just didn't focus, I think, enough on it. The heart of this question is, what are you going to bring to help your classmates? Right? That's the heart of the question. And so you focused a lot on, I have all of these skills. If you just would have just massaged it a little bit more into how it's going to help your classmates and help that educational environment, as the educational experience as the language they use here, that would have strengthened this essay a lot more. But good essay, I think, as it is. And then the optional essay here, this unique experience. Again, you have this experience of being an athlete. You kind of talk about your struggles a lot in this essay, and this is a perfect essay to talk about struggles, talk about any sort of unique circumstances that you have had. I would be careful here. In this essay, you said, I would no longer, right, midway through your junior year, I would no longer be a contender to receive the scholarship provided, right, to cadets. A person reading this isn't going to understand what that means, right? Why do you need a scholarship provided to cadets? I understand what you're talking about, I think, is the HPSP scholarship that you need to get to say, hey, you're approved to go on to medical school. And I know as
Yes.
an academy grad, they are very limited, right? Your job is to go out and be an active duty military member. Obviously, there's very limited slots for students to go on to medical school, and they do that for cadets through the HPSP program. So I understood what that meant, but a normal person isn't going to understand that. So you just have to be careful with jargon and kind of that knowledge that you have that other people aren't going to have.
Okay.
And then the next sentence, a little bit of the same, is saying I would be commissioned as an officer and jump straight into my new career field as opposed to attending school, right? And so again, well, attending school, do you mean like graduate school, professional school, medical school, right? So just be careful.
Okay.
But I think a good essay overall with what you were trying to show, which is kind of struggles with your grades overall, right?
Yeah.
All right. And then we'll get into the activities section here. And you can see, students can see TMDSAS, in my mind, does a very bad job of letting students tell their story. Right. And my main focus is the shirt I'm wearing, your story matters. When you only have 300 characters to give a description for an activity, it's really hard to tell that story.
Yes.
The TMDSAS application, for those watching who don't know about the application, is broken down into different kind of headings. And so this first one, employment and activities with academic recognition there. So you answer yes to that, and then you put all of the academic recognitions in there. I think those are all good. Non-academic recognitions you have in there as well. All of those I think are fine. Again, with 300 characters, it's almost impossible to say anything of importance in those.
Yeah.
Leadership is the next big heading. Again, TMDSAS asks you if you have any leadership, if you say yes or no, and then you enter in your information. Obviously, being in the military, going through the academy, plenty of leadership experience, right?
Yeah.
Tons and tons and tons of leadership experience. Research activities, you don't have any research. I mark that kind of as a, hey, just to be aware, this may be a red flag. I'm not of the camp that you have to have research to get into medical school. So it's just something to think about. Healthcare activities you have here. So you have volunteering at the emergency department. Again, the way that TMDSAS kind of lays out the application, it's hard to separate that this was kind of volunteer experience in a hospital, but not medically or clinically related. And so when I think of healthcare activities, I think more along the lines of how AMCAS classifies it as medical or not medical, clinical, not clinical, right? And so when you focus your description on, I spend Saturdays helping the nurses clean bedrooms in preparation for more patients in the ER, I'm like, okay, so you're a janitor, right? Yeah. Obviously, janitors do one part of the things, and nurses and doctors and other people do help turn over rooms. But when you focus on that non-clinical side of things in the description, my question is, well, you probably didn't do much clinical experience there, so I probably wouldn't think of that as a very clinical experience. And so, again, I'm going to look for more clinical things, right? Going back to your personal statement, my assumption is that you don't have a lot of clinical experience because your essay really didn't focus on why you want to be a physician. And that clinical experience is what helps you realize why you want to do this. And so as we go through your activities, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. We'll see. The next one you have here, volunteering. I think you're right. I think so too, but we'll see. Volunteering at the maternity department, again, focusing on the non-clinical things, restocking baby cribs, right? Again, not really patient exposure, clinical experience. Shadowing, awesome. You got shadowing experience. That's great. It was probably 1 week in 2015, so a long time ago. You checked that box and you moved on. So just that shows me that you either weren't super excited to go get clinical experience. Maybe you didn't have a lot of time, obviously, without looking at the dates and seeing how this overlaps with your being at the academy, what that looks like. I personally know being a cadet in the academy, super time intensive, right? There's not a lot of free time for other stuff. But that's a potential question mark of, did you get enough clinical experience? Well, this is 2015. You do have more here, right? Shadowing in February 2018, March 2018, you have it as well. And just a note on this that I should have said at the beginning, but I forgot. This was a 2018 application, right? For entry year of 2019. So those dates make sense a little bit more because they're a little bit older, but you applied another cycle ago. So
Yes.
You do have the shadowing there, which is good to show. Shadowing in OB again, that's great. So not a ton of clinical experience, right? The two kind of things that you put clinically in there, you focused on baby cribs and turning over hospital rooms, kind of. Okay? Not a lot of that patient interaction. And then the rest of your experience that you have in here, it just shows a wide breadth of exposure and experiences. Those are all great things. And as students can see, it's TMDSAS allows kind of unlimited entries in here. It gets a little crazy.
Yes.
D1 athlete shows a ton of, again, great experience. As a D1 athlete, I would say, oh, okay, so obviously, hopefully good team member, good leadership skills, all of these things that come with being an athlete that are just kind of given, right? And then because it's TMDSAS and it's the same application for vets and dental school, you have the vet supervised activities as no, great, animal experience, no, perfect, right? This is not what you want. Employment since graduating high school, your jobs are in there. So just a lot of things there. And really tons and tons and tons of experiences. For students to see the application, they just kind of list it in a different way here. It's the same things on here. Lots of questions about, because Texas wants to make sure you're a Texas applicant, lots of questions about Texas and are you really an applicant? And then we get into college work. And here's where I think the cream of the application cycle is for you and potentially your biggest hurdle to overcome. So I labeled here on the side freshman, sophomore, junior as you went through fall and spring and summer classes. So just to give students an idea. So right off the bat, right, D's and C's and C's and C's and C's, lots of C's and some more D's. And I wrote on here, I pulled it from your AMCAS application that you sent. The AMCAS application is probably a little bit different because TMDS doesn't calculate plus minus. Is your science GPA on your AMCAS is 253, cumulative GPA 285. And then you don't have any, at that time, you didn't have any post-bac grades that could support improvement of those undergrad grades. And so right off the bat, I mean, a student applying with that GPA is probably screened out. Nobody's going to see that application, unfortunately. There are options. Some schools will have someone who will look through those filtered out applications and go, okay, this is a diamond in the rough. We should take a look at this. But with a GPA that low, you haven't proven academic capability to succeed in medical school, which is what they're looking for. Again, they're not looking for the perfect 4.0 student, but they need some reassurance that you're going to be okay in medical school. And then MCAT, again, same thing, right? 493 first time, 498 second time, so great improvement there. Still giving me some jitters as to, are you strong enough to pass as we're recording this, pass step one, not get a super high score because it just went pass fail or will in the future. So again, weak MCAT score, not great grades. Those are really the two hugest, if that's a word, two hugest things in my mind. The rest of the application here is kind of administrative stuff. So with that, right? So I see three biggest things. Number one, applying with that low of a GPA. And I think if I remember from your AMCAS application, which I can pull up here just so students can kind of see how the grades are entered here, you did have a couple post-bac classes listed on there as kind of current classes.
I did take some post-bac classes since then.
Yeah, good. And so my hope is that you're getting A's in those.
Yes.
Okay, good. And so kind of moving forward, I would need to see that academic success, right? Continued with post-bac classes or a master's in a hard sciences, not an MPH or some SMP potentially. Really showing that academic success, getting as close to a 4.0 as possible as you continue through this journey. Improving that MCAT score, obviously very big.
Yes.
And then applying to the appropriate schools, right? Looking at your school list from before was a lot of public out-of-state schools that probably aren't going to give you the time of day. And then really the biggest thing is, as part of your story, you need to really be able to show why you're doing this, right? So hopefully since you've applied, you're getting more clinical experience, you're getting more shadowing, you're getting those experiences where at the end of the shift or as you walk away from whatever it is you're walking away that day, you're going, wow, like that was amazing. The emotional impact that had on me, what I saw, how I interacted with that patient, like I just want to do that all day, every day for the rest of my life. And that's the story that you have to talk about in your personal statement to really convince someone that this is what you want to do.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with everything you say.
Okay.
I think those are sorry, go ahead.
Any follow-up questions to that?
I guess I just trying to see like my next steps. I know like I said, I retook some undergrad courses. Like I took biochem, I took Orgo 2 again, as well as physics, I think, from my freshman year.
Great.
So I did well on those.
Okay.
And I think I've kind of like already hit all of the undergrad courses I need to take.
Okay.
So I'm kind of thinking more like master's program because I don't have the time to do a dedicated post-bac with my job.
Yeah.
I still have like 2.5 more years of service.
Okay.
So
the classes that you've taken as a post-bac now, kind of do-it-yourself post-bac, which it looks like you're doing, are you... or not are you? How many credits have you taken since graduation for post-bac classes? Do you know?
I think I've only taken like 36, maybe 12.
Okay. Yeah. So
credits. So like just 3 classes. Yeah.
So for someone like you with the early and often struggles in undergrad with the classes, the expectation probably will be 20, 30, 40 credit hours potentially of post-bac classes to really show like I have a year plus of really solid 4.0. You probably, and maybe you've done the math, you probably will never get up to a 3.0 unless you do like a full second degree. And at some point the question is the time and money worth it for that? Or should I just do a graduate program? It's a completely separate kind of line and numbers that schools can look at. And that's probably where I would lean more onto for you, just because the undergraduate GPA with all the credits that you have, you're not going to budge a ton with your overall GPA or science GPA, which in my mind is okay. As long as that really high upward trend is there, but some schools still might not give you the time of day. But a graduate program as close to a 4.0 as possible may open some more doors for you. And I would, because of your active duty military commitment, you might want to look into online courses, online masters. I wouldn't recommend it. I would either try to find a place where you're going to be stable for a few years as a duty station and do a master's there. Hopefully they're flexible with time and everything, or you just wait until your commitment's up, separate from the military, and then go realize this dream.
Okay. I have one more question if we still have time. So clinical experience, I know what we've talked about, like right now I've just been doing volunteering and shadowing, but maybe I need something a little bit more. I don't really know what to do. It
depends, right? The term volunteering doesn't tell me anything. You could volunteer at Habitat for Humanity and it's not clinical experience. You could volunteer in an emergency department and turn over rooms and that's not clinical experience. So volunteer versus paid doesn't really make a difference. It's what are you doing? So hands-on, as much as possible, clinical experience is what you're looking for, whether that's paid, right? Scribing is always a very popular one, super low pay. It's not really hands-on, but it's still clinical experience. Hospice, child life, you can volunteer in an emergency department and get tons of great clinical experience. It just depends on what you are doing, not necessarily the title or position.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
All right.
I think that's all the questions I had.
All right. Well, hopefully this was helpful for you to put your best foot forward next application and hopefully get you into medical school. So thank you for sharing your journey, your story, and your application with us.